Cultivated Life. I am so glad you're joining me and Andy and Ashley today. And we got a great conversation ahead of you, but I want to talk just for a moment about the Cultivated Life. Click all the good buttons, none of the bad ones. So hit the bell, the thumbs up, say the nice things, leave some comments, say hi to Andy and Ashley, make them feel at home, make them feel like you love them, right? All right. And
Appreciate that.
so to find out more about the Cultivated Life, you can find us online on social media, but you can go straight to our website at thecultivatedlifeministries.com. And our books are there and all the links are there. So that's how you do that. So, hey guys, good to see you.
Good
Great
to see
seeing you.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun having you guys.
Very
And
excited.
so we're really glad you're here. So tell me a little bit about, so here's what's crazy is we've known each other like not quite 5 years.
Right?
Not quite.
Easter 20, right? Or 21?
Well, he was Easter 21, so I
You
was
were
coming
Easter.
a little bit before.
Before, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
hmm
Okay. So not even 5 years,
Not quite.
4 years.
Quite.
And I know tidbits, but I don't know so much about you guys.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah. No, no.
I'm kidding.
So tell me your story.
Sure. You want to go or?
Well, I mean, our story kind of starts weirdly at police academy. So,
Okay.
yeah, we actually met in police academy in Fremont, Terra State Community College, and I was a park worker looking to be a park ranger, and she was
A waitress.
a waitress,
Waitress.
in
Yeah.
school.
Okay.
Yes. And we just kind of were there and never kind of left each other's side after that.
Yeah.
So were you both like you were thinking about park ranger?
Yep.
But were you thinking about actually being a police
I always wanted to be a
person?
state trooper. So,
State trooper?
Yes.
Ooh.
Didn't end up going that route.
Okay.
But that's okay. After we graduated, I did go into law enforcement for a little bit. But,
Yeah.
then I had kids and we were
That's a
working.
real tough life
It's
when
tough.
both of you are
Yeah.
in that, because in the summertime I was doing a lot of patrol, so I was working till midnight, all weekends, and with her trying to do the same kind of life with
Yeah.
kids,
It was
that's a tough one. Yeah.
Well, I think there's two really hard jobs. And one is waiting tables.
hmm
Waiting tables. Dealing with people at that level when they're hangry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the water is
Yes.
not exactly the right temperature, or
Yeah.
it's a half inch down and they want
Yeah.
more. I tell waiters and waitresses all the time, I'm going to take good care of you, and I promise I'm not going to fuss about anything. I'll eat whatever you put in front of me, and trust me, I've eaten some pretty bad stuff. But I just know it's a hard job.
Yeah.
And I know that-
Multitasking.
Yeah, a lot of what they're
Yeah.
doing is not even their fault.
Right.
There's a kitchen help.
Yes.
They got 4 tables at one time, or who knows.
Yeah.
But the other job is law enforcement.
It is tough.
Man.
It's tough.
So you guys
Yeah.
were like a glutton for punishment. You were already a waiter and looking to go into law enforcement. It's
Well,
like-
I went through a phase. I wanted to prove my worth as a woman in that world.
There you go.
And
Yeah, that makes sense.
I transitioned out of that over the years,
Hmm.
but I actually went into working with the sex offender population for a while from there, which was an interesting job to have.
Yeah.
And then he was growing up through his career, started, worked his way the last 21 years at the Park District. So
Okay.
it's been an interesting journey, but I learned a lot, and it kind of cultivated, if you will,
Yeah,
us
yeah.
into where we are.
Good
So-
plug.
Yeah.
Did y'all see what she just did right there? Good
That
plug.
was nice.
Good plug. I'll pay you for that later. We're going to keep a running tab over
Yeah,
here.
good idea.
Yeah. So then you're in park ranger work.
Yep.
And you're going up the ladder. Where
Yep.
did you go after that?
So I went
Started
to,
having kids.
started having kids. In my last pregnancy, I went to dispatching.
Okay.
And then from there, I moved to Bowling Green to Northwest Community Corrections and did like CDCA work and some different things in there for a few years. And I did the intake. So when people would come over to our facility for treatment, I would have to hear their stories.
Wow.
And type their
Type their
stories.
stories and present that to the judge and the jailers and things like that. And they'd make determinations whether they could be in the treatment facility or stay in the jail,
Wow.
basically. So
That was probably taxing
it was
to hear people's painful stories. Now, I get to hear a lot of people's redemption stories,
Right.
Yeah.
but to hear people's stories before redemption,
Yeah.
that's got to be tough.
And some of them didn't want to be redeemed. And so they were
Yeah.
very blatant about what they
Defiant.
Yeah, and
Yes.
she would tell me some things that that's a tough world to live in.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I mean, I enjoyed my job, if you will, or
Mhm.
like the day to day of it, but it makes you start not trusting a lot
Mhm.
and looking at the world differently. And I finally got to a point where that was just kind of enough, and went
Yeah.
back and got my master's in sports management and business, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
So tell me about your spiritual backgrounds. What kind of, because like I said, you've been coming to Life Chapel for 4 years or so. Where were you at before that?
Well, I grew up Catholic,
Okay.
and that was my mom worked at the Catholic Church. We were going, all the time.
Mhm.
My dad was shoveling the sidewalks.
You guys were committed.
We were committed. I was
Man.
mowing the lawn. The priest was giving me money out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
To do it. He was a great guy. I really respected him, and the Catholic Church is a little different than
Mhm.
what we practice here. So I would walk in, and
Mm.
you kind of nod to your neighbor, like you might give a little wave, but you didn't really get much into the
Right.
talking to people and all that. So it was much different growing up with that. And then you
Mhm.
grew up Baptist, right?
I grew up Baptist. We were, you talk about this a lot
Mhm.
in some of your sermons about being in the church every day.
Yeah.
And that was my life.
So you were at the Catholic Church all the time. You
Yeah.
were at the Baptist church all
Yep.
the time.
Yes.
I was at the Pentecostal church all the time. We had them covered.
Yes,
we
we
could have some
did.
really good potluck dance off, all the
Yeah.
things, ups and downs,
Wow.
mix it in there.
So
But
was it because you all lived close to the Baptist church, or your mom and dad were just heavily invested?
my grandfather was a deacon, and actually sometimes would even preach at the church.
Okay.
And my mom ran the youth and the kids for a while.
Wow.
And my grandparents were just wonderful
Yeah.
people of faith. My grandpa was the one that led me to
Your
God.
mom's side?
My mom's
Yeah.
side. He was probably what I would call my best friend. Like, he was just an
Wow.
amazing person. And my mom too. I mean, like, they had wonderful faith growing
Yeah.
up. We lived that, and all of the little songs, Father Abraham, and all the things,
Mhm.
ingrained in
Oh
your
my
life.
goodness, yeah.
And we were talking about it actually after Sunday's sermon about what a mighty God we serve.
Oh
And I
yeah, you
thought to
guys did that one?
myself, in the Baptist church, you need a tambourine. We were missing some things. But it was so
Yeah.
good, like, to bring that back.
Yeah.
From where
Grant
we
took
were.
off on that. He threw in a little other song in there too. Sharon and I were like, was that a rock song?
Yep.
Or what was that other
I think
song?
Stand By Me.
Stand
I
by
think.
me.
Stand By Me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good
So
song.
I just challenged him. He said, Dad, that's not rock. Trust me, that's not rock. But it was probably a pop song or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, it hit at such a perfect
Yes.
moment.
Yeah, it
So
did.
good.
It
That's
did.
so cool how that works.
I
But
love
it.
yeah. So you were raised in that all the time, showing up at church.
Yes.
Mondays. Sunday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
Did you do 2 times on Sunday?
We did, yes.
Yeah.
And in between, you either ate or you cleaned, one
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
two.
yeah, yeah.
And then we had like testimony services.
Oh, you
right,
better believe it.
too,
Yeah.
which were great. But
Yeah.
just so many things. We had rockathons, and meaning like sitting in a rocking chair
I
and
get it.
rocking
No,
for
we did
Jesus.
that.
Oh.
Yeah.
We
So
did
I didn't
for
mean
That's a
like,
thing,
to
huh?
raise
Okay.
money. And then we
Yes.
did walkathons
Yes.
where
Yep.
you walked like 10 miles and like they would raise money for.
Yeah.
They stole all that from the church. So,
But on the side of that, so my first youth group actually that I went to, like a conference, I
Oh.
seen DC Talk, and
oh
that
wow,
was rock.
that
back
was
then.
that
It
was a
Yeah,
big deal.
right.
it
We
was-
didn't listen to
yeah,
that
no.
wild music.
I guess it led me to be a Jesus freak, maybe.
Yeah.
I guess so. That's
Yeah.
probably a good thing, but different music
Mhm.
than probably what we were used to in the Baptist church. But I loved my church growing
Yeah.
up. I did.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was a smaller church, but
Yeah.
just great people.
How did you guys
and-
navigate this when you got married, though?
Yeah.
We didn't.
I didn't have a real strong base, I would say.
Yeah.
I didn't connect with the Catholic church as much. And so when it became time, we got married in the Baptist church that she was part of. And it was it's a mobile modular home in a trailer park is where that church was.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
My godfather was the pastor of that church.
Okay.
Wonderful man.
Yes.
Wonderful heart for Jesus.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, he's just an amazing
Yeah.
person. But it was smaller and it didn't have what we, I guess, needed as a family. And it was a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of became disconnected.
And they moved to Florida.
Yep.
So that, and then the church closed, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
So then
gone
you
now.
guys were just left kind of homeless for a church
For a while.
without a
Yeah.
church.
And I think, to be fair, I think I was straying from God a little bit. Like my background before even meeting Andy was straying from God a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we had that foundation, and I wish we would have. I wish we would have had that person to say, hey, let's talk about marriage and faith and raising kids and money and all the things, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't. So we had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And we did learn the hard way, but we tried numerous churches.
We bounced around a lot, and then you got we have a friend from Gibsonburg, the Kokomeyers that go here.
Yeah.
And she had been I would say bugging, but strongly
She was persistent.
suggesting.
And I love you for that.
Yeah.
She really was like on top of me about getting into church, and I think that's what we should do as disciples, right? Is push people to that, and so I'm very thankful for it.
Very.
But she would send me text messages, hey, like, you really should be in church, and our boys went to school together.
Okay.
So,
Now, did you coach one of her daughters in volleyball?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were involved in their life through school
Yep.
and all of it. Okay.
Yeah, I coached
And then
Courtney.
Gibsonburg's not a huge place,
No.
so
No.
you probably know each other there.
Reach
too.
out and touch her.
Yeah.
Carter is the same age as one of the other boys. They played basketball together.
Yeah.
One of her boys. So yeah.
Who's that?
So you show up at Life Chapel during COVID,
Yes.
or COVID had been going a little bit.
Because of COVID.
Because of
COVID.
our church that we were going to was going to close temporarily because of some COVID outbreak stuff, and it was that was the last straw. I think is we needed to find some place that was going to be open even during the hard times.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that's the way
it
we
was
looked at it.
challenging for churches,
I believe
Yeah, it was.
but it was challenging for everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what was
Yeah.
going on.
Right.
But we've always been the kind to be like, okay, we don't want to be crazy and do something foolish, but we're not going to be manipulated either.
Right.
Yeah.
And no matter how you feel about, whoever's watching or listening, however you feel about COVID and masking and vaccinating and all that, we're not going to pick a side.
Sure.
But we just said, you know what? I think it was maybe 3 weeks or maybe 4. And finally I said, nah,
Yeah.
we're back.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's when we started with two services
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't know that.
for distancing
Okay.
to make people feel comfortable.
Right.
Didn't bother me. I was still standing at the front door hugging people
Yeah.
like I always do,
Yeah.
But that's when you started coming.
Yes.
Is-
And I want to kind of preface just a little bit to that, because I think we really connected where we were
Mhm.
on a level. But I think because of what our family went through,
Yeah.
we had some depression issues through COVID within our family, and some things on a bigger level that made me take a different approach and say, we need to be with people. We need to gather with people, the kids especially. And so I kind of picked up with the kids and came.
Right. I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I used that as an excuse to not have to get up and go to church. I'm just
And
going to
you
be
used
honest.
to have the house to yourself for
I
about
mean,
2 hours.
Yeah.
I get it.
I
I get
mean-
it.
coincidentally is what he asked for on his birthday every year.
Great birthday request.
Yeah, I don't want to go anywhere. I
Just
just
give me
want
the
to be
house
home. But
by myself.
yes.
Yeah. So it was refreshing
Yeah.
to walk in and honestly see faces and
Mm.
smiles. And it was like walking into what we used to know.
Yeah.
It
And
felt like a dream the first time I
It
came.
really did.
Really?
It really
Yeah.
did. It felt like all these people are here, and it doesn't feel like that COVID was ever a thing. That's the way
Well,
it felt.
and we never talked about it. From the platform,
Yeah.
we never mentioned COVID, masking, vaccine.
Yeah.
We never picked politics.
Yeah.
We just said that we want people to come for that very reason, to be able to sit for an hour, hour and a half, and not hear that.
Yeah.
Because you were hearing it and seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was really what we felt God wanted us to do, was to create a place of respite, a place of rest where people could just come and not be bombarded with that,
Yes.
you know?
And
Well,
it
it's-
was. It was healing.
It felt, it was something that I was just, I'm kind of in law enforcement, and my time in law enforcement, I've always like tried to be a really good judge of character. And I always think I am. And the mission behind Life Chapel is something that I picked up on right away.
Yeah.
And believed when you guys talk about putting God first and everything else kind of falling into place. Doesn't really matter what your politics are. It doesn't really matter what the world around you is doing. If you can put God first in your life,
Man.
everything else just like Legos. They just all fall into place.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, you guys had already done the Financial Peace University and had already been working on that. Am I right on that?
We had just wrapped up. So October of 2020, we had
Okay.
just finished. So we were building baby step 3. We were
Okay.
building the emergency fund
Okay.
at the time. So yeah, right. Like I started coming. I think I actually called Heather today and was like, hey, can you help me with this timeline? Like, when did I start coming? When did I have it right? Because I'm a planner. But we figured out towards the end of 2020. So right after we had wrapped up, we had stepped into the church.
Because that's become a big part of your life.
It has.
Because so many people are now looking to you guys to say, what do we do? What do we do? And I know you guys have a ton of stories, but before we get into those, tell me about your spiritual journey since you've landed at Life Chapel.
Yeah.
So the discipleship, the transition, the transformation, what's been happening in your life in the last 4 years?
Well, maybe I can start with my experience here that I've talked about. So it was pretty early on when I started coming, and I remember walking back because Zoe was still going to Kids Chapel.
Okay.
So I'm walking back to Kids Chapel, and at that time, it was a zoo right there, right? It was like really.
It was a funnel. Where
it was a funnel,
got...
right? And a lady grabs me and she says, "Hey, I've seen you come in a couple times, and I just want to tell you that I had this vision of you in this church and being a big part of it. And I don't know if it's leadership or what part that is, but you have a part in this church that I can't explain." And I said, "Thank you." And I walked away.
Oh no.
And my first thought was, "Lady, you got the wrong guy," because I'm trying to walk in, I'm trying to sit down, I'm trying to not sway too much when the music is happening. So I'm not going to raise my hand. I'm not going to clap.
Not going to do any of that stuff.
I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to come in. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to stand up when it's time to leave, and I'm going to just shoot out the door. And I found out later that was Jen Tracy.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I have never heard that story.
Yeah.
Yep. And I just from then on, we just kind of like started coming, and I started saying yes.
Started saying yes.
Just started saying yes.
That's huge.
Yeah, it really is.
It was fun watching him go through like the stages of worship. Like all the
what they
stages.
say, carrying the TV to the whatever, to the football touchdown.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I can't really still clap to the beat, but that's a me problem. That's not really.
That's funny.
I'll clap for him, Pastor.
Yeah,
there you
go.
Thanks.
No,
that's amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah.
It was really funny too, because I remember going home and he was like, "Yeah, that ain't for me. That's not for me."
So he told. I mean, you told her like
I did. It kind of freaked me out at the time. Yeah, and I thank her. I told her that story now, and I want to thank you, Jen, for
exactly.
I just we just did start saying yes and wanted to help and be involved as much as we could. So
it was really cool watching. So Zoe and I got baptized. So I was baptized when I was younger.
Right.
But I had decided to rededicate my life in
Mhm.
2022, and Zoe was baptized with me at the same
Mhm.
time. And she just kind of took off like wildfire. That's just who she is.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, she's amazing.
just
Of
built
course,
that
all your
way.
kids are amazing. You got
Thank
3
you.
kids. They're all amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. And then Andy surprised me one day. We were just sitting at home, and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna get baptized." And I was in shock, and I didn't want to overreact with joy, because I was like, "Is this gonna make him change his mind?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "You know what? And I think I'm gonna talk to Hayden too, because I
Mm.
think this is important." And they it was in 2023 when it was I think Easter. We did
The
a
Baptism Sunday.
Baptism Sunday.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Sunday after Easter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
And that song that was playing at the time, well, every time I hear it, I just get
Oh,
a big smile on my face. And I know the change. I've seen it. I
Mhm.
watched it. I've watched him grow it and cultivate it. And I did it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm keeping score over
Yep.
here.
So our transformation spiritually has been incredible.
I mean, we started coming to Wednesday prayer.
Yeah.
That was a hard thing for me.
Yeah.
Praying out loud is not something that I'm used to.
Right.
But coming to prayer and doing it in the prayer room at the start,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
it's pretty tight in there,
Yeah.
and there's quite a bit of people
Yeah.
walking around, and there's a lot of praying out loud happening. I found something happening. I found it easier to pray out loud. I felt like the things that I was experiencing and visualizing and
Mhm.
seeing and feeling were different because of that Wednesday night prayer, for sure.
You know what I tell people, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. If it's like, no, you shouldn't be telling people that. But I tell people, if you don't know how to pray or you're not comfortable praying out loud, just come and sit and listen and watch other people do it.
Yes.
And then if you hear something that you like, say it.
Pray it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just say it out loud.
Yep.
Just cheat.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm right, but I think that's what he was doing. when he
I would
first
say
came.
that, but
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
Because there's something about, look, maybe it's a positive peer pressure. I don't know what it is, but there's
Yeah.
something to it. And that's exactly how you integrated into that whole thing
Yeah.
of learning to pray.
Yes.
Wow.
I would say he's
What a great
he's
story.
a melter, and I just straight jump in.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
a jumper.
Yeah.
And
Yep. I would
So-
agree with that 100%.
Now we know where Zoe gets it.
Yes. That's
probably,
true.
probably.
That is very true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing.
No.
That creates a lot of energy and excitement. And
We definitely have a lot of yin and yang to us that,
Yeah.
the black and white,
Yeah.
we complement each other well because we are very much opposites.
Yes.
So,
which usually happens in a marriage.
okay.
If it's not, you get 2 people that sit at home and never do anything.
That's probably true.
That's probably
Or
true.
you get 2 people that are running in so many directions that nobody's keeping track of anything.
That's a good
To
point.
where if you
Probably.
get one that's a little more,
Yeah.
going
Yep.
and one that's a little more steady, then you're able to, and
There's a
you know,
balance.
I see that happen a lot, and I love to watch
Yeah.
that happen.
Yeah.
Especially when you're willing to accept it in the other person,
Yeah.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't accept it at first, but I'm so thankful for Shay, and I have shared that testimony with her before. And she just told me, Ashley, you got to stop pushing him and you got to start showing him. And I said, okay, because I was praying on doorposts in the bed and putting the
prayer
towels
closet.
underneath
Yep.
and all of the things. I want this man
Yeah.
in church. I growing up in a Baptist home, the man is supposed to be the leader.
Yeah.
Right. And so in my head, I was like, that's how it's supposed to be. Why isn't it this way? And I just kept praying, have him step up. I just want him to step up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she
And-
didn't realize it, but when she was going to church, she was leaving angry and coming home angry.
Wow.
Was.
Here?
But
Yeah.
Or even at the other churches?
I
Or
was-
primarily here.
Probably both.
Primarily here because
Wow.
but it was because she was angry that I wasn't coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Well, that
didn't
don't
see
help.
it that way.
No,
No.
it did not. That's why she
That's
was
not a motivator.
No. She was
That's a
like,
demotivator.
It was.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that Jesus stuff ain't working for
Yeah,
her.
no.
I ain't trying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. And
Yeah.
you know what I love about this right here is the honesty that you guys
Yeah.
Yeah.
are just saying, hey, this is real. This is so.
It's
Sharon
very
tells
real.
you what? My wife Sharon tells you what?
She said, Ashley, stop trying to put him in a stronghold and pushing him and show
Mm.
him. like show him when you leave, like, hey babe, I love you. You can come if you want to. Or, when I come
Wow.
home, more graceful with the way I treated him, right?
Mhm.
Because I really was. I'd come home and I'd be like, watching the Browns again? How dare you?
It's
Like,
Jesus time.
right. And, just showing that I was changing. And admittedly, anger was
Yeah.
my hold. And I think he started seeing the anger slowly subside and Jesus slowly rising. And I think that helped in the transition of it.
I know it helped.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great story because I've seen that happen so much. And it can happen the opposite too, because this is what happens when you get unequally yoked. It can happen in finances. It can happen in communication. It can happen in spirituality. But when one gets ahead of the other, instead of figuring out how do I do this in such a way that attracts them,
Right.
Yes.
we fight, get mad, throw stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of ways people respond, right?
Right.
The silent treatment. I mean, there's all, and so if as people learn how to grow your companion,
Yeah.
this is so powerful.
And
It's
but
being graceful, loving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understanding.
Yeah,
Yep. Let people come along at their own pace.
yeah.
Which is hard to do for an impatient person.
yeah.
And I'm a very
Fingers at
patient
me.
person.
Yeah.
There's two back at him, right?
Yeah, well, and I am.
Yeah.
One of my flaws is I'm very slow to friendships and to grow in friendships because I always say it's because I moved around a lot as a kid as an Air Force brat. So
Yeah.
it took a long time. You go into a new school, and the first kids that wanted to be your friends were the kids that didn't have any friends. The reason they didn't have any friends is because they weren't the best of friends in the first place, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So I think I just started to be a little bit slow to
yeah.
jump right in with things where that's her personality,
Yeah.
and it's not mine.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I'd jump in, and sometimes it wasn't
It's
right.
boiling hot
right?
water.
And he was like, Ashley, and I fought him so hard because I was like, stop giving me advice. Don't. And then I've realized now in our marriage, when he says something, I listen because I can't name one time where it didn't work out in my benefit.
Wow.
Like when he says, like, slow down. I'm
you
Write
bet.
that one down too, please. Thank you.
Hey, I'm keeping score for
Thank
you,
you. I
buddy.
appreciate that.
He's
Yeah.
a wise old
Very
man.
old,
Oh.
very old, and very gray.
What a way to compliment him with a stab.
Yes.
You're wise. Old.
Old and wise.
That's funny. Well, but this is how marriages last. This is how
Yeah.
marriage grows and relationships develop over the years, is understanding each other and putting up with each other long enough. I asked somebody, I said, recently went to a 50th wedding anniversary, and my question was, what's the key, right? That's what everybody wants to know.
Yeah.
What's the
Sure.
key? And she looked at me and she said, we never bought a gun. I can't use that one.
Even if it's accurate.
Knowing how many I have right now.
So we
Yeah.
can't use that one when we're talking
Right,
marriage
no.
seminars. Like, we want to help your marriage. Don't buy a
buy a
gun.
gun.
No, so, but you guys have learned though to wrestle with this tension
Yeah.
Yeah.
and to start to appreciate each other. And how long you guys been together now?
18. Well, been together 19 years,
Yeah,
but
19
married
years.
18.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I know we're probably going to get into it, but going down the debt-free journey that we did, the financial journey,
Yeah, and that's a good segue because I want you guys to talk
Yeah.
about that.
that was definitely the moment in our lives, our married lives, where we truly became one. In the past, because we were always kind of living paycheck to paycheck and kind of living from one snap rash decision to the next, stopping into Inside Out Pool and dreaming about a hot tub on a credit card, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
That we were
Yeah.
looking for ways to make
Which
us
is-
happy.
That's how
Sure.
the average person lives. You guys
Yeah.
know that now because
We
you're
do.
coaching people.
Yeah.
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 But when you can come to church on Wednesdays and Sundays and you can find that joy and happiness, and you don't necessarily need all the stuff to make you happy, and then you can find some people in your life that also have some of the same views, it's really helpful. And
it is.
And I wish we would have known that, but it took us going through a debt-free journey where we had to have budget meetings together.
What pushed you to finally say, we got to do this? What was kind of the breaking point?
I lost my job in 2016, and it was kind of tumultuous, I guess. I don't know how to explain that any other way, but it was hard. It was a hard process, and even in that, we were still blessed because I was given a severance package, but there was a lot of other moving pieces in there that kind of happened, and we didn't do right with that money, right? We got it and, got rid of it as fast as it came in.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah. Tried to buy that happiness.
And he always used to tell me, like, you're always looking for happiness in the next place. And once I got it, I would look for the next and the next. And
which is how everybody seems to roll, or, most people.
So during that time, things got really hard, and I was so stressed, and we were fighting a lot, and literally had moments where I would cry in bed knowing, like, where is this going to get paid? And we would pay a credit card to pay a credit card to pay an electric bill. And it was incredibly overwhelming, having 3 kids, and they're expensive.
And sports, because they're all involved in sports. They're all very good athletes, but that doesn't come free.
Nope.
No,
or cheap.
No.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
So it just hit a wall, and I admit this all the time, but he knew I had student loan debt, but he had no clue what the number was, because anytime he would try to talk to me about it, I would say, I can't log in, or I can't, I don't know, I don't know what the number is. And that number was very high.
Yeah.
And like devastatingly high. And it just came crashing in around us. And I started going on this like weird self-help exploratory journey where I was reading books upon books upon books. And one day I happened to stumble on Dave Ramsey.
Okay.
And I don't know why, for whatever reason, maybe it was his biblical background that he brings to it, that really spoke to me. And I told Andy, I was like, we should try this. And I think we started with trying the actual cash envelope.
Okay.
Sharon shared with us that you guys did.
That's what we did.
Right?
Yep.
And it didn't work for us.
Yeah.
It was hard. I think we fought more about that than.
Yeah.
How much is going in what envelope, and what's coming from that envelope to be put in the other envelope?
How do carry the envelopes around?
Yeah, that was part of it. Yeah. Do I need that much cash? Because I might need to pick up something from the store or whatever. Yeah.
So, we happened. We kind of shoved it aside then, and then in towards the end of 2018, moving into 2019, I got offered a job, and Andy said to me on a walk, hey, why don't we just take what you make and throw it at the debt and just live off of what we have? And I was like,
because you'd already been doing that.
Yes, that was a logical step for me. And I said, if you make, I don't remember what the number was, but if you make $50,000 a year and we have $127,000 in debt, it's 2.5 years and we're good. We're done.
And I laughed at him because I thought it was hilarious. Because we've always lived up to the means. You get it, you spend it. That's how we lived. And somehow, by the grace of God, we started the process. And it took off like wild. And when we started, it was supposed to be 48 months. So by the time Carter graduated, we were supposed to be debt free, which was 2022. And Andy's tithing story kind of comes out of this too, because I was tithing. And he didn't say I couldn't tithe, but he didn't really know. And it was more like, well, put it on the debt. Why, we could put that on the debt, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense according to the world standards.
Yeah.
There you go.
According to the books, the bottom line.
Yep.
This totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is something that we've talked about in our faith and finances class, is the world is telling you what to do with your money. But the Bible tells you a much different route, much different way of looking at money. And that was when we continued to give throughout the debt-free process. And every step along the way, we were blessed.
Wow.
With something
Some
crazy.
way, shape, or form, money came out of nowhere. She tried to get another job and
driving Uber.
She
Oh,
tried
my.
to
Not pretty.
apply for pizza delivery jobs and
jobs.
never
Yeah.
got a call back.
Yeah.
But we were getting that was during COVID, so
Mhm.
all of a sudden they stopped student loan interest rates.
Yeah.
So we went to a 0, so instead of having
Wow.
to pay for all the
Interest, right?
Yeah.
Which is where most people get stuck in student
Yeah.
loans.
yes.
Yeah.
Is they spend all their time paying interest,
Right.
and they
Yeah.
never get to the principal.
Or
Am I right on that?
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
making the minimum payment, which only covers your interest and it doesn't hit principal,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
kind of what we were doing.
Yeah.
We were
Mhm.
making that minimum payment. And I just told this story, actually. I'm a numbers nerd,
Yeah.
but we just told this story to the class that when I started, my student loans were actually only like $46,000. But because we only made that minimum payment to cover the interest, by the time we started this journey, I owed, I think, $96,000.
Wow.
86.
Yeah.
So think about that.
Nearly
Yeah.
doubled.
Right?
Yep.
Nearly doubled just,
Or over.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess it
And-
did double.
and
Yeah.
they're telling you like, just pay 0 and in 20 years it'll be forgiven. Right. And
So you guys started this journey in
2018, we started. the
2018.
journey.
Yep.
When did you grab hold of the tithing principle?
It was
Because you were already doing it,
yeah.
Yeah.
the tithing thing.
It wasn't too long after that.
Okay.
It was kind of like
Okay.
it started to see like those blessings, and I'm maybe more of a signs and wonders guy. Like I want
Yeah.
to believe in the
Yeah, yeah,
signs
yeah.
and wonders, and that and I started to see that, and I started to associate, what God was doing in our lives with the journey we were going down. It felt a lot like God was saying to us, "We've got you.
Mm.
You're doing right by me. You
Yeah.
continue to do right by me, and I'll continue to do right by you."
Yeah.
And I know that, none of us want COVID to come back. So
Right.
maybe the student interest loans, if you got that out there and you
Yeah.
got student, maybe praying for another COVID maybe isn't the way to go. But
Thank you.
I
No.
will
Do not
say-
encourage that
right.
one.
But I will say that, we were hearing testimonies from somebody in our class just this last week about blessings that they've had that have come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
We've been hearing that from people that we've helped along the way.
Mhm.
And our goal with this has always been, we wished we would have had somebody that we knew that had been through the fire and the flames and
To
the
coach
flood
you
and
along.
yes,
Mm.
and said that it's possible. Like
Yeah.
what you're doing, it seems hard, it seems impossible,
Mhm.
it seems like it's never ending, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you just have to keep
Yeah.
doing it and trusting God along the way, and make sure that the very first thing on your budget is giving, and
Mhm.
the rest will take care of
contentment.
itself.
Like
yeah.
I need to
Yeah.
stress
Being
that.
satisfied
Right.
with what you have,
Yes.
where you are.
Contentment was huge. I
Mm.
turned off social media the whole time. I didn't have social media.
Yeah.
I mean, all that stuff you need.
Right.
You
No,
gotta
And I
have
really
it.
don't.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's what.
Yeah.
The
Right?
world says
They
the
tell
world
us what
says
to
you
do
have to
with our
have a
money.
cell phone. The world says you have to
Yeah.
have cable. The world
Yeah.
says you
But
have to
everything looks beautiful, right? And I love beauty. I love those things. But like people going on constant vacations, it's just not, it's not possible for
Mhm.
us. And we
Yeah.
know that. So contentment was absolutely key. The budgets were key. I love the story in the Bible about building the tower and Jesus saying to the disciples, like, you need to know your cost, because if you get at the end of this and you don't have enough money, you can't finish building the tower.
Yeah.
And you don't think that God talks about budgeting, but he did.
Well, actually, there's 2,350 verses in the
Yes.
Bible that talk about money, or something like. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really. I might be off 10 verses. It may be 60.
You're
or-
very, very
but,
close,
yeah.
because my suggestion for our faith and finances class was 2,350 reasons why.
Oh.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
2,350.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the economy,
Yes.
and when you read the parables, almost every parable is tied to the
Money.
economics
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
and how economics work.
Yep.
So he was he was onto something
Yeah.
way before
Yes.
America became consumers.
Right.
Right?
Capitalism and everything
Yeah,
else. Yes.
exactly. He was onto something.
Yes.
So when did you
absolutely.
guys finally get to the place of being like, we're debt free?
October of 2021.
Yes.
So it only took you 3 years.
22 months.
22 months. It was supposed to be
Wow.
48. And
Yeah.
we got on fire.
Yeah.
I bet that
And-
was exciting.
We
Oh,
saw
no
our
idea.
incomes. Her income doubled.
Yeah.
The funny story is that I'll let you tell it, but the Rust Belt story.
Have I told you the rest of the story?
I
Yeah.
don't know.
I met with Heather at Rust Belt. I didn't know
Yeah.
at first that the church or
Oh,
grant
yeah,
owned
yeah.
it. Had a nice chat with her about, Life Chapel and some different things, getting involved. And then I was looking to leave my job that I was at the time.
It was really
was-
tumultuous. It was
yeah.
a very bad situation.
Yeah.
She was
And
unhappy,
Mhm.
Wanted to walk
but
away.
made good money.
Yes, I did. I made very good money. And I was just at a breaking point, like
Mhm.
ready to leave. It's the right time for a next step. And I took this random interview. I wasn't really looking. It came in my inbox. Took the interview, and then at the end of the interview, the guy hands me a bag, and there's Rust Belt coffee in it.
Really?
And I was like, "This is weird." And the name of the company is Rust Belt
Rust Belt recruiting.
So
Really?
yeah, it was
Oh,
just.
I
Yeah.
have not heard this
Yeah,
story.
it was bizarre, and it was funny because I told Andy and I was like, I just don't know, it's going to be a pay cut, and he said, "Do you want God to strike you down in this kitchen right now?"
Like he basically slapped you across the
So
face and
wait.
said, "Take this job."
Let's go back a few years to where you were saying something about the man should be the spiritual
Yeah.
leader of the house.
Ding, ding, ding.
Very aggressive in his
Then you
leadership.
become the spiritual leader, and you're like, now, Jesus, we need to talk about this.
I know I said he could wear the pants, but I didn't mean it, Lord.
I still should tell him what color
Right.
and
When
what
to put 'em
style.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
pretty
see,
much.
that's
Pretty
a-
much.
But there you go.
Yeah.
That's an answer. Like you
Yes.
didn't see that coming,
No.
and it's like, okay, God,
Yeah.
he's the spiritual leader here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre. And
That is
so
hilarious.
jumped in head first, and that turned into blessings because then, Gentry, I connected with Gentry,
Right.
and
Yeah.
he took a position through that, and I hope he still loves that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's,
him and of course that company transitioned.
yeah.
They brought in a new boss, new
Yeah.
CEO, and him and his the CEO is just. I mean, they're like
No,
they
it's
work
awesome.
together all the time.
That's
That's his
awesome.
direct
Very cool.
Report.
Direct
report.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
No.
Well,
my
actually,
direct report is
Yeah. it's-
God. I don't understand that a whole lot because I don't see him physically
Yeah,
a lot.
it's
You know,
funny.
It's a little hands-off-ish.
working remotely
Yeah.
took a whole new term for me.
that's amazing. though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The name of the company's Rust Belt. They give you some Rust Belt coffee.
Yeah.
And a
it was
coffee
kind
mug
of
with the Rust
Rust
Belt
Belt
on it.
logo.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So jumped into that job, and
Yeah.
it's been a journey. for
That's
sure.
so cool.
Yeah.
Now you're getting ready to transition again.
Yes.
Are we able to talk about it, or we still can't let them in on it?
I think we're okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we're good.
my
We're good.
Because we
31st
could
is
just
my
leave them
last day.
hanging and shut the podcast
Oh,
off
I
right
like
now.
that
Be like,
idea.
sorry,
Part
guys.
2, maybe.
Yep,
Maybe
part
not.
2.
No, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So excited.
So tell us what's next.
Yeah. So you actually introduced me to Aaron.
Mhm.
He works as the district coordinator for FCA Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I've coached pretty much my whole life. I
Mhm.
played sports, played volleyball in college, and just love sports and coaching and all of the things. And
Which I think is interesting because you got all this coaching practice in sports, and now you're coaching people financially.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
yeah, it
I
is.
know volleyball, softball. You can coach people. You can
Yeah.
see a certain swing. You can see a certain movement, and you can help navigate that with them.
Yeah.
And because of what you guys have done financially, you're really doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just with numbers and paper.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
and
I-
it's
I mean,
it's kind of life
I see
principles.
how God prepares us for these
Yeah,
things, you know?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, I agree.
Well, and God prepared me in ways beyond that, because for a long time after I gave up on state trooper, I told Andy that I've always wanted to own my own club.
Ah,
And I didn't realize how much I loved Jesus, I think, until I came to this church. And I had this like epiphany where I was like, I get to possibly step into the thing that I've always wanted to do and the thing I love at the same time,
Yeah.
which is mixing discipleship with athletics.
Yes.
And that's a really cool thing for me, to be able to share my faith, because there's so many things you can't talk about around faith when you're a school coach. And that's been a struggle for me because, and I've always been this way, against the grain. Don't tell me I can't pray. I'm going to pray anyway. Like, that's just who I've always been.
Yep.
But I've learned to be more graceful in it. And I think that came the last year or so. I've stepped into coaching positions in an assistant position. And I'm not built.
It's sort of like me, her telling me what to do.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't exactly love it when there's
It's
a head
tough.
coach
That
that
is
tells her
tough.
what to
But
do.
you know what? When you have a gifting for leadership, you got to find that lane,
Yeah.
or you're going to be frustrated.
Yes.
And so you're called to be a leader. And if you're a leader, you can't fall into, I'm trying to say it easy because I don't want to make it sound like you can't follow people.
Right.
But if you're called to be a leader, it's so hard to lead at somebody else's pace. Maybe that's the better way to say it.
And I would say that Ashley was really good at leading, but there is a servant leadership, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was the piece that maybe she was missing, where it was, she needed to be able to lead, but in a way that wasn't the top, and to more manipulate and navigate with people in a way that brought them up, but almost without them knowing, and they didn't have to listen to her, but they started to listen to her, and we saw it. I saw it in her different, positions where all of a sudden, she's praying before games and people don't know that what she's doing. She's just walking out by the outfield, and then all of a sudden somebody asks the question, well, what are you doing out there? And she's like, well, I'm praying. And then, pretty soon it's like, well, hey, can I pray with you before the game?
Wow.
And then during volleyball season, it was a couple, right, that prayed with you?
A couple times we got pretty much the whole team before games, just
and then it turned in the entire team.
Yeah.
Very cool. And
but did that without forcing anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Leading
But
by
again,
example.
The same thing, leading by example. Don't try to force it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just live it out.
Yep.
It's so hard for me. That's very hard.
It's hard for
me.
us in our finance and faith and finance class too, because everybody's in a different position. Everybody's in a different, they've got different walls up.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear about some of the things that we're trying to say. So we try to say it. We try to be positive, and we try to be understanding, and we try to say it in a way that they can hear it. And maybe it's not a challenge.
Yeah.
But it's just maybe someday in the future, this little seed that we've cultivated will grow into something. I want that one in my column.
But think about this. The hardest thing to change is your mind.
Yeah.
The second hardest thing to change is somebody else's mind.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and God worked on me hard, because those 2 seasons were probably the most challenging seasons, but also the most rewarding seasons.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I became a different coach that I didn't know I was capable of being. I was always kind of the fix this, here's how.
Yeah.
And kind of stern, and also like very excited. And I was not mean, but these 2 seasons were me finding how to be positive and just take a different approach to the girls.
Yeah.
And I actually loved it. I didn't think I would. I wanted the other side, but forming that into then FCA and finding this position, which really, when I talked to Aaron, was more about just volunteering.
Yeah.
And we had some conversations, and it just led to, hey, like, we've really wanted to build club sports out again. And club sports is one of those areas that we see a lot of student athletes missing out on Sundays.
They're worshiping the sport and not right.
And it's challenging for us, admittedly, because our kids
You've
play.
seen Zoe in a softball
sports.
uniform at church, right?
But they're good too.
Yeah.
That's the other struggle.
It is.
Yeah.
Is if you looked at your kid and you're like, man, you ain't got a chance.
Yeah.
You could kind of just say, well,
Yeah.
we'll find another
Right.
way.
Sure.
But when they're really good
Yeah.
and you feel that tension, you got
Yeah.
to navigate it. And you're seeing that. So you're saying, how do I alleviate this? How do we
Yes.
create a sports club
Yeah.
that's focused on Jesus and prayer
Yeah.
and Christian values?
Yes. And so I actually approached Aaron about it, and I said, "Hey, I
Yeah.
seen this was up. You know, what's the deal?
Mhm.
And just turned into we're both going to pray about it, and it kind of just kept leading to a little bit more. And he wanted to hear my vision on it, and I wrote out a 3-year plan, and it just kind of
Wow.
kicked into this. And it's crazy though, because I will tell you, when we talk about gathering and all of these different things with athletes and sports, you think about the Tim Tebows and what's going on with Bowling Green and Ohio State and all of these different things, how they're just kind of opening up this world of faith.
Mhm.
I feel like we've missed the mark in that with club
Mm.
sports because, we can do devotionals on the field. We can do these things to try to bring it in, but I think there's a better way.
Yeah.
I do. I think there's such a better way for it to happen, for these athletes to really be gathering and be in the presence of God. And I
Mhm.
think worship for these kids, this particular age group, is so important.
Yeah.
That's worship clears my mind of everything. And we
Mhm.
talk about a pitcher walking out onto the mound. It's such a mental sport, right?
Yeah.
And so those little things that we can push and guide them into to,
Mhm.
just small things to
Yeah.
add to the sport. But on a side note to that, when you have, I think it's like 6% of athletes go on to play in college, and you think
Yeah.
about that, right?
Yeah.
My
Chances.
daughter might not be one of those,
Right.
and I want her to know that there's more than
Mhm.
sports. But if we're
Yep.
spending every Sunday away from the church, am I doing my job as her mom?
Wow.
And that was really hard for me
Do
to.
you want to preach Sunday? I know a few people
No.
that need to hear this. No, I'm kidding.
I needed to hear it. It
Yeah.
became.
Yeah.
It became.
It's
Yeah.
that tension that we talked about,
The
Yeah.
right?
world telling you what you should
And
be
Life
doing.
Chapel is so blessed with so many people who really have that same attitude. Is like,
Yeah.
no, church matters.
Right.
We're not going to
Yeah.
throw church away for 4 years and then think our kid's going to be all about
Right.
it the day they leave high
Right.
school ball, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Or how are they going to disciple when they get there if they
Yeah.
don't know it, right?
Right.
And that's a huge piece of it too. So
so you're now transitioning into FCA
yes,
leadership.
Um,
What's the title around that?
So right now we have to label it as area rep because I think, as I mentioned to you, you have to fundraise your first year's salary. So you're not technically a full-time employee or on staff or being paid. Like right now I lead huddles at Gibsonburg. So we have like a group that we, all athletes that meet, we do a devotional, we talk about things, we try to, bring other students in, teach them about God, just disciple them. So I do that right now. And then I'll start the fundraising process. So I'm transitioning out of my position. So I'm still working full time until the 31st. And then it'll just be a fundraising process from there.
So by the time this airs, which will be sometime in the 1st of February, 25, you will already be in fundraising mode.
Yes. Yeah.
So how can people give? And we'll drop these in the links.
Sure.
We'll drop some links in the comments down there. Tell people how to give.
Sure. So there's a couple ways. So I have the QR code. And
if you need that to
perfect.
show them.
No, it's okay. So the QR code is on here, and I do have some of these cards. So if anyone's at Life Chapel or they see me, feel free to ask. I can hand it to you. It tells a little bit about the mission, how it'll impact, what it's going to do. But you can also go to fca.org, and there is a giving page. And if you just type in my name, Ashley Brown, it'll pop that up. You can give to that mission. Some people want to directly impact huddles, in which case you would just write a check or give to the huddle.
Okay.
So it's just a little bit different.
Would that be like a school, more directed toward a school?
It's directed towards the area huddles. So like each school has a huddle. So it's funding that mission. But
so if I said, you know what, I really want to see this happen in my school, which is under your area,
yes,
I can give to that. But it'll still it'll impact, it'll get you somehow in that door, or
It won't me specifically. So
okay.
mine would just be for club sports.
Okay.
So
Okay. So
mine's
you're
directed
you're
at
you're
club
you're going to
sports
focus on
and
club sports,
Yeah.
which Life Chapel really wants to be involved in this.
And I really want you to. I've been dreaming
and we're trying to
about
figure out how to do
those
this.
cages on
Yeah.
a daily basis. I promise you. That has not left my heart at all. But yes, that covers equipment. That covers eventually it'll help fund the mission that we're trying to go out, bring those athletes in. There's opportunities to sponsor scholarships, to sponsor teams, to do all of those things.
Now, I'm assuming this is nonprofit work.
It is nonprofit
So
work.
everything donated is a tax write-off.
Correct.
Everything donated is a tax write-off, so it's beneficial. It's like you're getting the money back.
Yes.
Through your taxes.
Matter of fact, I think that is it true, Ashley, that if let's say somebody worked for a company or maybe owned a company, that they could offer direct payments through their checks, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we do have an option to do like a monthly or regular giving, so you can kind of.
Yep. So years ago, when I worked on a public job, we did United Way.
Sure.
They took out so many dollars.
You could decide,
and then they send one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So literally the same idea.
Yes.
Could happen for you with Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yes.
So for those of you that might own a business, or you want to go to your business, go to your company and say, I want my money to go to Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yep.
Yes.
Or they can just go straight to the website and set up recurring giving.
Yep.
Yes.
$10 a month, $50 a month,
Absolutely.
$1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Yes.
That number keeps getting
Come
higher.
on, let's think.
Right, let's think big.
And I am thinking big, because I think this is such an amazing
How
opportunity.
much do you have to raise?
So
What's your first goal?
first goal is to fund the first year, which is roughly $57,000.
Okay.
So then outside of that, I want to continue raising funds, or if there's any businesses that are turf or have athletic equipment that they want to donate. Equipment sponsorships would be
that could be huge. Yeah.
Yes. Or uniforms, right?
Yeah.
For club sports. All of those things would be just amazing. One of my biggest goals is to find a way to sponsor athletes who can't afford to play club.
Yeah.
Because we are missing a big group of kids that have so many talents. And I want to pour into those kids.
And not only do they need the sports aspect, they need the Jesus aspect
yes,
too.
The faith
right?
aspect, absolutely.
So
faith
aspect.
That's okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for being here. What else do we need to know about what you're doing? Is there anything else that I'm missing? Anything else you guys want to share that I'm like totally skipped over?
We didn't talk about the Building Generations campaign.
Yep.
I just it's something that is still on my heart, and I know that you have brought it up a few times, and we were part of the committee to help promote that, and we believed in that vision.
Still do.
We still do.
Still do.
Yeah.
And I just would encourage everybody out there to continue to be thinking about what you can.
So the month of March will be 1 year since we.
Oh, great.
So the whole month of March, we're going back at it again.
Okay, great.
We're going to be showing the slides again. We're going to be this will be out before that happens.
Yeah.
But it's that 1 year, and so we're like, all right, we got to reinvigorate, because we have so many people at Life Chapel.
Yeah.
That don't even. I mean, I just had a couple sit down with me 2 weeks ago, and they're like, "What's this building thing?"
Yeah.
And I explained it to them, and they're like, "We want in.
Yeah.
We love this."
Yeah.
It's such a great opportunity. Truly.
And so
we've seen so much growth in the church since we started coming, that we, and just knowing the community now, we know so many people, the connections that are there, and there's so many people that bring just amazing things to the church and to the community that is.
You know what?
fantastic.
I tell people all the time, and I know it sounds. I've pastored 3 churches,
right?
All the same one,
okay,
but just like 3 like groups.
Yeah,
sure.
And not everybody in every group was easy to pastor.
Very politically stated. Yes.
Uh-huh. I'm telling you what, the 3rd church, which is the church we have now, Sharon and I tell everybody, this group of people is the most amazing group of people. the love they have for Jesus and the way they care for one another and look out for one another and laugh together and hang out
Yeah.
together. It's just like blows our mind at how many people. And part of it's because of you guys. I mean, that's how we see it.
I don't know if we can take any
Yeah.
credit on that,
No,
but
it's just
maybe
home
she
for us.
can.
It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
home. Like
Yeah.
that was the biggest thing for building generations. It's why we wanted to be involved, because when I'm here, I'm happy. I'm with family. I'm
Yep.
like, and I'm laughing. I'm having
Yeah.
fun.
And I credit Life Chapel to her even being able to go and step into this,
Yeah.
because 4 or 5 years ago, there's no way. There's no
Yeah.
way that her anxiety over money or future or
Mhm.
anything like that would be able to overcome, and she'd be able to overcome that and step into
Yeah.
something like this.
Yeah.
So I credit Life Chapel and
I
your
love that.
leadership and Pastor Sharon and
Yes,
Grant
absolutely.
and everybody for just everything that we
Yeah.
got us here. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen without Life
Well, we
Chapel.
love having you as the family. But you guys drive a good distance. Your mom and dad drives even
They-
farther
they
than that.
drive
They
a
drive
lot.
almost an hour,
We're-
like
Yeah.
45, 50 minutes. maybe.
Yeah.
Ours
We're
is
about
doable.
25.
We're okay.
Yeah,
That's
It's
a
not
pretty
25.
good little
terrible.
drive, though.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it.
But
Yeah.
you know, when you look at Life Chapel, we have people as far away as your mom and dad,
Yeah.
Yep.
which is Clyde,
Yep.
Yeah.
you know, to the other side, Swanton
Yeah.
and you know, Waterville and all the way up
Some
to
in Michigan,
Temperance and
yeah.
up
Yeah.
into Michigan. And it's like, this is such a wonderfully weird group of people coming from
Yes.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And so many, it's so diverse.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I
that's
never
just
have
so
to
much-
worry about if I'm going to click with somebody from Life Chapel.
Yeah.
It just happens.
Yeah.
It's,
I love that.
It's wild.
I love it.
I have so many people in my phone. You would laugh if you've seen it, because I have names. I always like to joke about Tiffany. When I first met her, she told me a story about a moose. She's from Alaska.
Yes. Yeah.
And so she's in my phone as Tiffany Alaskan Moose Girl. Because I kept meeting
That's-
so
yes.
many people, and
How do I keep them all
yeah.
straight? That's
Yes.
hilarious. I
So-
love that.
And that's just how I manage it. And I love people. I do. And so
Yeah.
I want to talk to them all and meet them all and know more about them. And so
That's
it's just funny.
fantastic.
That being said, I do want to mention one other thing about
Yes,
FCA.
please
if
do.
anyone is interested in volunteering or wants to start a huddle at their school and have an opportunity to get in front of these
Yes.
kids or athletes, you don't need to be a coach or an athlete,
Yeah.
just a leader and have a heart for God and the kids.
All they got to do is come and see you, and
Mm.
you can kind of direct them
Absolutely.
and show them what the next step
Yes.
is.
And we
Fantastic.
need more huddles. As the more huddles we
Yes.
have, the bigger club sports can grow and the more we can pour into these kids
Yes.
about Jesus. So yeah,
I
absolutely.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, let me say a prayer over you guys
Absolutely.
and all of those that are listening and watching. Father, we thank you for our time together. We thank you for Andy and we thank you for Ashley. We thank you, Lord, for their heart for you. We thank you for their kids that just love you and they care so much about you. And they're just, the prophecy over their life that they're going to be vital to Life Chapel is just a few years old and already come to pass. And for that, we're so thankful. And we pray for everybody that's listened or watched. And we just pray you bless them. And those that are considering, should I give, or what should I give, or how should I give? I pray that you would just open their hearts of generosity toward FCA and Ashley and what she's doing. And we just give you praise for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us,
Thank you.
Pastor.